The ancient halls of the Medici palace echoed with whispered conversations and the rustle of silk as courtiers maneuvered through the labyrinthine politics of Renaissance Florence. In the dim candlelight of his study, Niccolò Machiavelli penned words that would forever change how humanity understood power, influence, and the delicate art of commanding respect. Yet beyond the political machinations he described lay something far more profound, a blueprint for forging unshakable confidence in a world that preys upon the weak and rewards the strategically bold. The man who would become known as the father of modern political science understood a fundamental truth that most people spend their entire lives avoiding: the world is not fair, people are not inherently good, and those who refuse to acknowledge these realities will find themselves at the mercy of those who do. This understanding forms the bedrock of what we might call Machiavellian confidence, not the hollow bravado of the insecure, but the steel-tempered assurance of one who has looked unflinchingly into the nature of human behavior and emerged not cynical, but prepared. In the courts of the Medici, Machiavelli observed something remarkable. The most successful individuals were not necessarily the most talented, the most virtuous, or even the most intelligent. They were those who understood the game being played around them and possessed the confidence to play it masterfully. They recognized that in a world where everyone wears masks, the person who acknowledges this reality gains a tremendous advantage over those who pretend otherwise. This is not about becoming cruel or manipulative for its own sake. Rather, it is about developing the kind of unassailable confidence that comes from understanding human nature so thoroughly that you can navigate any social situation, professional challenge, or personal conflict with the calm assurance of someone who has seen every variation of the game before. It is about transforming yourself from someone who reacts to the world into someone who shapes it. The journey toward this kind of confidence begins with a fundamental shift in perspective. Most people live their lives as if they are subjects in someone else's kingdom, hoping for favor, fearing displeasure, constantly seeking validation from external sources. The Machiavellian approach demands that you begin to think of yourself as the architect of your own destiny, the author of your own story, the prince of your own domain. This mental transformation is not about arrogance or delusion, it is about taking full responsibility for your circumstances and developing the strategic mindset necessary to improve them. Consider the difference between reactive confidence and strategic confidence. Reactive confidence is what most people display: a defensive response to challenges, a desperate attempt to prove themselves worthy. It fluctuates with circumstances, crumbles under pressure, and depends entirely on external validation. Strategic confidence, on the other hand, is internally generated and strategically deployed. It does not seek to prove anything to anyone because it operates from a position of self-knowledge and purposeful action. The transformation begins with brutal self-assessment. Machiavelli counseled princes to know themselves as thoroughly as they know their enemies, for how can one rule effectively without understanding one's own strengths, weaknesses, and motivations? This requires setting aside comforting illusions and examining yourself with the same analytical rigor you might apply to a complex business problem or strategic challenge. What are your actual capabilities versus your imagined ones? Where do you consistently fail, and why? What patterns of behavior have held you back? What fears drive your decisions? This process is uncomfortable precisely because it strips away the protective layers of self-deception that most people use to navigate life. But it is only by understanding your true starting point that you can chart a course to where you want to be. The assessment must extend beyond personal introspection to include a clear-eyed evaluation of your environment. Who holds real power in your professional sphere? What are the unspoken rules that govern social interactions in your circles? What do people actually want versus what they claim to want? This kind of environmental intelligence forms the foundation of strategic confidence because it allows you to operate from knowledge rather than assumption. In the corporate boardrooms of today, just as in the Renaissance courts of Machiavelli's time, the most confident individuals are those who have taken the time to understand the game being played. They know who the real decision-makers are, what motivates different stakeholders, and how to frame their ideas in ways that resonate with each audience. This knowledge creates a natural confidence because it eliminates the uncertainty that breeds anxiety and self-doubt. The second pillar of Machiavellian confidence involves developing what might be called strategic detachment. This does not mean becoming cold or uncaring, but rather learning to separate your emotional reactions from your strategic responses. When someone challenges you, insults you, or attempts to undermine you, the immediate emotional response is often defensiveness, anger, or hurt. These emotions are natural and human, but they are also strategic weaknesses if they drive your behavior. Strategic detachment involves creating a mental space between stimulus and response, allowing you to choose your reactions based on what will be most effective rather than what feels most immediately satisfying. This capacity for emotional regulation is perhaps the most visible marker of true confidence because it signals to others that you cannot be easily rattled, manipulated, or controlled. The practice begins with small interactions. When someone makes a cutting remark, instead of immediately responding defensively, pause and consider what response would be most strategically advantageous. Sometimes this might be a measured comeback that demonstrates wit without escalating conflict. Other times it might be complete silence that forces the other person to fill the uncomfortable void. Often the most powerful response is to treat the insult as irrelevant, neither acknowledging it nor allowing it to affect your demeanor. This strategic approach to interpersonal interactions creates a feedback loop that builds confidence over time. As you become less reactive, people find it harder to push your buttons or manipulate your emotions. As they fail to get the reactions they expect, your power in these interactions increases. As your power increases, so does your confidence in your ability to handle whatever social or professional challenges arise. The development of strategic detachment also involves learning to view setbacks and failures as information rather than judgments on your worth as a person. When Machiavelli analyzed the rise and fall of various rulers, he did not focus on whether they were good or bad people, but rather on what strategies worked and what strategies failed under specific circumstances. This analytical approach to personal setbacks transforms them from sources of shame or self-doubt into valuable data for improving future performance. A failed presentation becomes an opportunity to analyze what elements did not resonate with that particular audience and how to adjust the approach next time. A rejected proposal becomes insight into the decision-making criteria of those in power and how to better align future proposals with those criteria. A social slight becomes information about the insecurities or motivations of the other person and how to navigate similar personalities in the future. This reframing of negative experiences requires practice and conscious effort, but it fundamentally alters your relationship with failure and uncertainty. Instead of experiences to be feared, they become simply more data points in your ongoing education about how the world works. This shift in perspective naturally builds confidence because it removes the existential threat that setbacks pose to your self-concept. The third element of building Machiavellian confidence involves mastering the art of strategic presentation. Machiavelli understood that perception often matters more than reality in human affairs, and that the most capable person in the room is not necessarily the one who receives recognition, advancement, or influence. The person who understands how to shape perceptions and present themselves strategically will often outperform someone with superior technical skills but inferior presentation abilities. This is not about deception or manipulation in the negative sense, but rather about ensuring that your actual capabilities and value are recognized and appreciated by those who matter. It involves understanding that people make decisions based on limited information and often unconscious biases, and that failing to account for these realities puts you at a disadvantage regardless of your actual merits. Strategic presentation begins with understanding your audience and what they value. A technical innovation might be presented differently to a cost-conscious CFO than to a growth-focused CEO. A creative proposal might be framed in terms of risk mitigation for a conservative manager and in terms of competitive advantage for an ambitious one. This is not dishonesty, it is strategic communication that helps others understand the value of your ideas in terms that resonate with their priorities and concerns. The development of presentation skills also involves cultivating what Machiavelli would have called sprezzatura, the ability to make difficult things look effortless. This concept, popular in Renaissance courts, refers to a kind of practiced nonchalance that suggests natural superiority without appearing to try too hard. In modern contexts, this translates to being thoroughly prepared while appearing relaxed, being knowledgeable without being pedantic, and being confident without being arrogant. The cultivation of sprezzatura requires extensive preparation combined with the discipline to hide that preparation. The most confident speakers often spend hours rehearsing to achieve the appearance of spontaneous brilliance. The most successful negotiators prepare for every possible scenario so they can respond smoothly to unexpected developments. The most influential leaders study their industries so thoroughly that they can speak knowledgeably about complex topics without consulting notes or deferring to experts. This level of preparation creates genuine confidence because it eliminates most sources of uncertainty and anxiety. When you have anticipated the likely questions, prepared thoughtful responses, and considered various scenarios, you can enter any professional interaction with the calm assurance that comes from being thoroughly ready for whatever might arise. Strategic presentation also involves understanding the power of controlled revelation. Just as a master chess player does not reveal their entire strategy at once, the strategically confident person understands when to reveal capabilities, knowledge, or intentions and when to keep them in reserve. This is not about being secretive or deceptive, but about understanding that premature revelation can diminish impact while well-timed revelation can maximize it. In professional settings, this might mean allowing others to struggle with a problem before offering a well-developed solution, ensuring that your contribution is both valued and memorable. In social settings, it might mean revealing impressive accomplishments or capabilities gradually rather than in a single overwhelming display that might trigger defensiveness or resentment in others. The mastery of timing in self-revelation requires both patience and social intelligence. It involves reading the dynamics of each situation and understanding when your input will be most welcome and impactful. This skill develops over time through careful observation of how different people respond to various approaches, but it fundamentally stems from the confidence that comes from knowing you have value to offer and the patience to wait for the right moment to offer it. As these foundational elements of strategic thinking, emotional regulation, and presentation skills develop, they begin to reinforce each other in ways that accelerate confidence building. Strategic thinking provides the framework for analyzing situations and developing effective responses. Emotional regulation provides the stability to implement those responses even under pressure. Presentation skills ensure that your strategic thinking and emotional stability translate into tangible influence and results. The synergy between these elements creates what might be called compound confidence, a self-reinforcing cycle where success breeds confidence. Confidence enables better strategic thinking leads to more success, and so on. This is why confident people often seem to become more confident over time while insecure people often remain stuck in patterns of self-doubt and reactive behavior. The acceleration of this cycle requires conscious attention to creating positive feedback loops. This means actively seeking situations where you can apply your developing skills and achieve measurable results. It means setting progressively more challenging goals that stretch your capabilities without overwhelming them. It means surrounding yourself with people who support your growth while avoiding those who benefit from keeping you small or uncertain. The choice of environment and associates plays a crucial role in confidence development. Machiavelli observed that princes were often undone not by external enemies but by the poor counsel of advisors who told them what they wanted to hear rather than what they needed to know. Similarly, your confidence development can be sabotaged by surrounding yourself with people who are threatened by your growth or who profit from your insecurities. This requires a sometimes difficult evaluation of your current relationships and social circles. Are the people around you supportive of your growth and success, or do they subtly undermine your confidence through criticism, doubt, or discouragement? Do they challenge you to become better, or do they enable complacency and mediocrity? Do they model the kind of confidence and strategic thinking you want to develop, or do they demonstrate reactive patterns you want to avoid? The cultivation of strategic relationships involves both adding positive influences and removing negative ones. This might mean seeking out mentors who embody the kind of confidence you want to develop, joining professional or social groups where strategic thinking is valued, or simply spending more time with friends who support your ambitions and less time with those who discourage them. The removal of negative influences can be particularly challenging because it often involves distancing yourself from people you care about or have long-standing relationships with. However, Machiavelli understood that loyalty to individuals must sometimes be subordinated to loyalty to your own development and ultimate success. This does not mean being cruel or ungrateful, but it does mean being realistic about which relationships serve your growth and which relationships hold you back. The development of new strategic relationships requires its own set of skills and confidence. You must be able to offer value to others before you can expect to receive value from them. This might involve developing expertise that others find useful, providing assistance or support that helps others achieve their goals, or simply being the kind of person that successful people want to spend time with. The cultivation of valuable relationships also requires patience and strategic thinking. The most powerful connections are often built slowly over time through consistent demonstration of reliability, competence, and mutual benefit. Attempting to extract value from relationships before they are properly established often backfires and can damage your reputation among the very people you most want to impress. As your network of strategic relationships develops, so does your access to information, opportunities, and resources that can accelerate your confidence building. You gain insights into how successful people think and operate. You receive feedback on your ideas and approaches from people with experience and judgment. You discover opportunities that might not be available through traditional channels. Most importantly, you begin to see yourself as someone who belongs in circles of influence and success rather than someone who is lucky to be temporarily included. This shift in self-perception represents a crucial transition in confidence development. Instead of feeling like an imposter who might be discovered and ejected at any moment, you begin to feel like a legitimate participant in whatever arena you choose to enter. This change in self-perception naturally alters your behavior in ways that reinforce your belonging and increase your influence. The transition from external validation to internal confidence represents the culmination of the Machiavellian approach to confidence building. Rather than constantly seeking approval or permission from others, you develop the ability to validate your own decisions, assess your own performance, and set your own standards. This internal locus of control is perhaps the most distinguishing characteristic of truly confident people. Internal confidence does not mean ignoring feedback or operating in isolation. Rather, it means having the self-knowledge and judgment necessary to evaluate feedback critically, accepting what is useful and rejecting what is not. It means being able to distinguish between criticism that is meant to help you improve and criticism that is meant to keep you in place. It means trusting your own judgment while remaining open to new information and perspectives. The development of internal validation systems requires extensive practice in making decisions and living with the consequences. This means gradually taking on more responsibility and autonomy in both professional and personal contexts. It means making choices based on your own analysis and judgment rather than constantly deferring to others or seeking consensus for every decision. This process necessarily involves making mistakes and experiencing failures, but these setbacks become less threatening as your confidence becomes more internally generated. When your self-worth is not dependent on external approval, temporary setbacks do not create existential crises. They simply become information to incorporate into future decisions and strategies. The ability to maintain confidence in the face of criticism or setbacks is particularly important in leadership contexts. Leaders must often make unpopular decisions, take calculated risks, and maintain composure under pressure. These requirements are impossible to meet if your confidence depends on constant positive feedback from others. Internal confidence also enables what Machiavelli called virtù, the ability to adapt flexibly to changing circumstances while maintaining core principles and objectives. This kind of adaptive confidence allows you to change strategies without changing identity, to learn from failures without losing self-respect, and to evolve your approaches while maintaining your fundamental sense of direction and purpose. The cultivation of virtù requires balancing firmness with flexibility, conviction with openness to new information, and confidence with humility. These balances are achieved through experience and reflection rather than through rigid adherence to predetermined rules or strategies. They require the kind of nuanced judgment that develops only through extensive practice in navigating complex situations. As internal confidence develops, it becomes increasingly visible to others through subtle but unmistakable signals. Confident people move differently, speak differently, and react differently to challenges and opportunities. These differences are often subliminal but powerful in their effect on how others perceive and respond to them. The physical manifestations of confidence include posture, eye contact, vocal tone, and gesture. Confident people tend to take up space rather than minimizing their presence. They make direct eye contact without staring aggressively. They speak clearly and at an appropriate volume without rushing or hesitating unnecessarily. They use gestures that reinforce their words rather than betraying nervousness or uncertainty. These physical elements of confidence can be practiced and improved, but they become most natural and effective when they reflect genuine internal confidence rather than attempted manipulation of appearance. When confidence comes from real self-knowledge, strategic thinking, and proven competence, the physical manifestations flow naturally from the internal state. The verbal manifestations of confidence include the ability to express ideas clearly and concisely, to ask probing questions without appearing ignorant, to disagree diplomatically without being confrontational, and to remain composed under questioning or criticism. Confident communication is characterized by precision rather than volume, by substance rather than rhetoric, and by strategic timing rather than constant chatter. Developing confident communication skills requires extensive practice in various contexts. This might involve seeking opportunities to present ideas to different audiences, participating in debates or discussions on topics you care about, or simply practicing the art of conversation with people from different backgrounds and perspectives. The strategic use of silence is often overlooked but represents one of the most powerful tools in confident communication. Comfortable silence can create space for others to reveal information, can emphasize important points, and can demonstrate that you are not desperate to fill every moment with noise. The ability to remain silent when others are uncomfortable often shifts the power dynamic in your favor. Confident communication also involves knowing when not to engage. Not every challenge requires a response, not every criticism deserves acknowledgement, and not every opportunity for debate should be seized. Strategic silence can be more powerful than the most eloquent response, particularly when dealing with people who are trying to provoke an emotional reaction. The behavioral manifestations of confidence extend beyond communication to include decision-making patterns, relationship management, and response to opportunities and setbacks. Confident people tend to make decisions more quickly because they trust their judgment and are comfortable with uncertainty. They maintain relationships based on mutual respect rather than neediness or manipulation. They pursue opportunities that align with their goals rather than accepting whatever is offered to them. These behavioral patterns reinforce confidence by creating positive outcomes and feedback loops. Quick decision-making leads to more opportunities to practice judgment and learn from results. Healthy relationship management creates a supportive environment for growth and risk-taking. Strategic opportunity pursuit leads to better outcomes and increased options for the future. The transformation from someone who lacks confidence to someone who embodies strategic confidence is neither quick nor easy, but it follows predictable patterns that can be accelerated through conscious effort and strategic approach. The process typically involves several phases, each building on the previous one and requiring different focus areas and skill development. The initial phase involves recognition and assessment, becoming conscious of current patterns of thought and behavior that undermine confidence, and developing clear understanding of what needs to change. This phase can be uncomfortable because it requires honest self-examination and often involves recognizing that some cherished beliefs or excuses must be abandoned. The recognition phase is often triggered by a significant setback or failure that forces confrontation with reality. This might be a professional disappointment, a personal relationship crisis, or simply the accumulating weight of years spent in reactive patterns. The key is to use such experiences as catalysts for change rather than as confirmation of inadequacy. The assessment that follows recognition must be thorough and objective. This involves examining not just obvious weaknesses but also hidden strengths that may be underutilized. Many people with confidence issues actually possess significant capabilities that they have never properly leveraged because they lack the strategic thinking necessary to deploy them effectively. The assessment phase also involves developing clear vision of what confident success would look like in your specific context. This vision must be concrete enough to guide action but flexible enough to evolve as circumstances change. It should focus on behaviors and outcomes rather than feelings or internal states, because confidence is ultimately demonstrated through action rather than through self-perception. The second phase involves skill building and pattern interruption, developing new capabilities while consciously breaking old reactive habits. This is often the longest phase because it requires creating new neural pathways while overriding years or decades of ingrained responses. Skill building during this phase should focus on the foundational elements discussed earlier: strategic thinking, emotional regulation, and presentation skills. However, the specific skills needed will vary based on individual circumstances and goals. A technical professional might need to focus more on communication and relationship building, while someone in sales might need to develop better analytical and strategic thinking capabilities. Pattern interruption involves consciously choosing different responses to familiar situations. This might mean pausing before responding to criticism instead of immediately becoming defensive. It might mean asking questions instead of immediately offering opinions. It might mean taking time to consider options instead of accepting the first opportunity presented. The pattern interruption process is mentally exhausting because it requires constant vigilance and conscious choice rather than automatic response. However, this phase is crucial because it breaks the reinforcing cycles that maintain low confidence and creates space for new patterns to develop. During this phase, it is important to focus on process rather than results. The goal is not to immediately achieve perfect confidence but to consistently practice new patterns of thinking and behaving. Results will lag behind efforts, and measuring progress based on outcomes rather than consistency can lead to premature discouragement. The third phase involves integration and acceleration, allowing new patterns to become natural while seeking increasingly challenging situations that test and strengthen developing confidence. This phase is characterized by positive feedback loops where growing confidence enables better performance, which reinforces confidence, which enables even better performance. Integration occurs when strategic thinking, emotional regulation, and confident presentation become automatic rather than conscious processes. This typically happens gradually rather than suddenly, and may occur at different rates in different contexts. You might feel fully confident in professional settings before achieving the same level of confidence in social settings, or vice versa. The acceleration that occurs during this phase happens because confidence becomes self-reinforcing. As people respond more positively to your increased confidence, you receive more opportunities to practice and demonstrate your capabilities. As you achieve better results through strategic thinking and confident action, your trust in these approaches increases. This phase also typically involves expanding your sphere of influence and ambition. As confidence grows, goals that previously seemed impossible begin to seem achievable. Relationships that once seemed intimidating become manageable. Challenges that once seemed overwhelming become merely complex problems to be solved strategically. The acceleration phase requires careful management to avoid overconfidence or reckless risk-taking. True confidence is calibrated to reality rather than inflated beyond reasonable limits. The goal is to become accurate in self-assessment rather than uniformly positive, and to take calculated risks rather than unnecessary ones. The final phase involves mastery and influence, using developed confidence not just for personal success but for creating positive impact in whatever sphere you choose to operate. This phase is characterized by the ability to remain confident even in completely novel situations, and by the capacity to help others develop their own confidence and strategic thinking capabilities. Mastery in this context does not mean perfection but rather the ability to continuously adapt and learn while maintaining core confidence and strategic orientation. Masterful confidence is humble enough to acknowledge limitations while being bold enough to act decisively when action is required. The influence that comes with mature confidence is often indirect rather than obvious. People are drawn to those who embody calm assurance and strategic thinking. They seek advice from those who demonstrate consistent good judgment. They want to associate with those who seem to navigate challenges effectively and achieve their goals regularly. This influence creates opportunities for impact that extend far beyond personal success. Confident people often find themselves in positions where they can mentor others, lead teams, shape organizational culture, or contribute to causes they care about. The strategic thinking skills that build confidence also enable effective leadership and positive influence. The development of influence also involves understanding the responsibility that comes with confidence and strategic capability. Machiavelli wrote extensively about the duties of princes not just to achieve their own goals but to create stability and prosperity for those under their rule. Similarly, those who develop strong confidence and strategic thinking abilities have opportunities to use these capabilities for positive impact rather than purely selfish advancement. Throughout this transformation process, certain principles consistently accelerate progress while others consistently impede it. Understanding these principles allows for more efficient and effective confidence development. The principle of compound improvement suggests that small, consistent changes accumulate into dramatic transformations over time. Rather than attempting massive overnight changes that are difficult to sustain, focus on making slightly better choices consistently. This might mean speaking up once per week in meetings rather than never, or preparing slightly more thoroughly for presentations, or responding to criticism with curiosity rather than defensiveness just once per day. These small improvements create momentum that makes larger changes possible. As you experience success with minor adjustments, you develop both the skills and the confidence necessary to attempt more significant transformations. The key is maintaining consistency even when progress seems slow or invisible. The principle of strategic patience recognizes that confidence building operates on different timelines than many other forms of skill development. While you might learn a technical skill relatively quickly through intensive study, confidence develops through experience and must be tested in real situations over time. Attempting to rush this process often leads to setbacks that slow overall progress. Strategic patience does not mean passive waiting but, rather, consistent action without attachment to immediate results. It means continuing to practice strategic thinking even when early attempts are clumsy. It means maintaining emotional regulation even when it feels unnatural. It means presenting yourself confidently even when you do not yet feel internally confident. The principle of selective engagement suggests that confidence building is accelerated by choosing your battles wisely rather than attempting to transform every aspect of your life simultaneously. Focus on the areas where improved confidence will have the greatest impact on your overall goals, and allow success in these areas to create momentum for addressing other areas later. This might mean focusing on professional confidence before social confidence, or vice versa, depending on your circumstances and priorities. It might mean addressing presentation skills before strategic thinking skills, or emotional regulation before either. The key is choosing a focus that allows for measurable progress and positive feedback. The principle of reality calibration ensures that developing confidence remains grounded in accurate self-assessment rather than delusion or overcompensation. True confidence comes from knowing what you can and cannot do, and being comfortable with both. It involves pushing your boundaries while respecting your limitations, and taking calculated risks while avoiding reckless behavior. Reality calibration requires ongoing honest feedback from trusted sources, regular assessment of results versus intentions, and willingness to adjust strategies when evidence suggests they are not working. It also requires distinguishing between temporary setbacks that should be persisted through and fundamental misalignments that should be addressed through strategy changes. The cultivation of Machiavellian confidence ultimately represents a choice to take full responsibility for your life circumstances while developing the skills necessary to shape those circumstances strategically. It is a choice to see the world clearly rather than through comforting illusions, and to operate effectively within that reality rather than wishing it were different. This approach to confidence development is not for everyone. It requires sustained effort, uncomfortable self-examination, and willingness to abandon patterns and relationships that no longer serve your growth. It demands that you become comfortable with uncertainty while taking calculated risks based on incomplete information. However, for those willing to undertake this transformation, the rewards extend far beyond personal confidence. Strategic confidence enables authentic relationships based on mutual respect rather than neediness or manipulation. It creates professional opportunities through demonstrated competence and leadership capability. It allows for meaningful contribution to causes and communities you care about. Perhaps most importantly, Machiavellian confidence provides a sustainable foundation for navigating an uncertain and often challenging world. Rather than being buffeted by circumstances or dependent on others for validation and direction, you develop the ability to create your own stability and pursue your own vision of success. The forge of ruthless confidence is not a destination but a continuous process of growth, adaptation, and strategic action. It requires constant attention and regular refinement, but it provides the tools necessary to shape your life according to your values and ambitions rather than simply reacting to whatever circumstances present themselves. In a world that often rewards the bold and penalizes the hesitant, the cultivation of strategic confidence becomes not just an advantage but a necessity for those who wish to achieve meaningful success and make positive impact. The principles and processes outlined here provide a roadmap for that cultivation, but the journey itself must be undertaken with commitment, patience, and unwavering dedication to growth and excellence. The transformation from reactive uncertainty to strategic confidence represents one of the most valuable investments you can make in yourself and your future. It is a gift that compounds over time, creating opportunities and relationships that would otherwise remain inaccessible. More than that, it is a foundation for building the kind of life that reflects your highest aspirations and deepest values. The choice to embark on this journey is yours alone, but the potential rewards, for yourself and for those whose lives you touch, make it among the most important decisions you will ever make. The world needs more people who combine strategic thinking with authentic confidence, who can navigate complexity with wisdom, and who choose to use their capabilities for positive impact rather than purely personal gain. The forge of ruthless confidence awaits. The question is not whether you have the potential for transformation, everyone does. The question is whether you have the commitment to see that transformation through to its completion, and the wisdom to use your developed capabilities in service of something greater than yourself. In the end, true confidence is not about dominating others or advancing at any cost. It is about developing the strategic thinking, emotional regulation, and presentation skills necessary to navigate life effectively while maintaining your principles and contributing positively to the world around you. It is about becoming the kind of person who creates more opportunities than they consume, who solves more problems than they create, and who leaves every situation slightly better than they found it. This is the ultimate expression of Machiavellian confidence, not the ruthless pursuit of power for its own sake, but the strategic development of capabilities that enable positive influence and meaningful impact. It is confidence in service of something greater than itself, wisdom applied to worthy ends, and strength used to protect and empower rather than to intimidate or control. The transformation is possible. The methods are available. The only question remaining is whether you will choose to begin.